Welcome to this week's edition of the Raider Hoops Report with Coach Raz Vanderloo. I'm Brian Vakalskis, joined with the head man himself. And Coach, it was a weird week because you had almost a whole week off and then two games within 24 hours. Can you talk about the preparation leading up to two games in 24 hours that you do leading up to that week? Do you have to prepare for both games at once, or how do you do that?
Yes and no. The first couple days of the week we spend a lot on fundamentals and maybe tweaking things we need to be tweaked. And then we kind of start rolling into the first game, which was Friday night, the West game, going through their sets and things they do. We spend a little time on the Saturday game, earlier during the week, just to kind of, have a general idea on South Sioux. And then we, like I said, the day before on Thursday, we're basically all West. And then we actually practice Saturday morning, which is obviously all South Sioux.
Well, Friday night went your way. It was a 35-point running clock up at West High School. And I know Chase Kern got into foul trouble early. And that kind of set the tone for that first half, because it was like, all right, we got a starter out now who needs to we need to step up. The team stepped up.
Absolutely, he got two quick fouls early, and let's be honest, Chase is a huge part of our team and offense and defense, and mainly rebounding. And when he got the two, it's a kind of a coach's decision. Do you stick with him and hope he doesn't get three? Do you take him out? Planning for the second half, not knowing how the game's going to go, and so we went the safe route and took him out, and the rest of the guys stepped it up a ton. We brought in Alex Stevie and Austin Arndt, and both those kids, they rebounded the ball well, and defensively the first half against West was as good as we've been in a long time.
As an aside, when you have a player that gets two fouls, it seems like anytime a player gets two fouls, he goes to the bench for the rest of the half. Three fouls, he goes to the bench again. Is there something magical about that? Is there something that says that the kid's going to pick up his third foul that quickly, or is that just sort of the habit that everybody's gotten into over the years?
A little bit of both. We get out the Coaching 101 book, and it says when a kid gets two fouls, take him out. It's like I said, it's a coach's decision, and depending upon the position of the kid and how the game's flowing, you don't ever want to see one of your main guys with three in the first half. If you could have told me it was the second half we were going to be up by a wide margin, obviously we would have left him in, not knowing how the game was obviously going to go. Like I said, we went the safe route. Maybe in a different game, maybe we would have left him in, knowing if without him in there, it's going to really hurt our rebounding and we can't slip behind. So it's kind of a game-to-game deal, but the safe side is always to take him out.
And then you had Wyatt Mounts explode for 20 points that night, and it seems like when he gets hot, he gets hot. He's hitting threes, he's hitting twos, he's hitting his free throws, and the same thing happened against South Sioux, but I'm talking specifically about West. Wyatt seems like a guy that he gets in his groove, and then everybody feeds around him too. He's not a selfish player.
No, absolutely not. I mean, sometimes I almost think sometimes he needs to be a little more selfish. That we're gonna survive this year and win a lot of games because our team is kind of interchangeable parts, and they're not selfish. Wyatt's one of those guys. Basically, our main three seniors, Carter Lilly, Wyatt Mounts, and Chase Kern. Those three, when they get on a roll, they're pretty good. And when you see them, get into their groove, you want to kind of see them go with it. And like I said, sometimes Wyatt maybe will give up an open shot to pass the ball, which is normally never a bad thing. But when you're in your groove and you got an open shot, fire it up there.
Man, you picked up the victory up at West. You don't want to say easy victory, but it was a wide gap. Mm-hmm. And so that happens. But then what that does is it stretches your players for into Saturday. You had a 1-hour walk through Saturday morning, and that's really all you can do. Are you prohibited by rule, or could you have had a full practice Saturday if you wanted to?
No, we could have a full practice. I just think, when you're playing two games in 24 hours, I think mentally, it drains you mentally, not so much physically. These are high school athletes that should be able to, a lot of these guys have played AAU ball where they played 20 games in a day. I mean, but I think the mental part of it, you get mentally drained. When you're doing a preparation for the Friday night game, you're trying to remember, okay, we're going to lay out this guy, we're going to trap this guy, and now you're going into Saturday, and now you got to rethink everything over again. So it's more of a mental drain than a physical drain.
And so Saturday night, you crossed the river, went over to the South Sioux Mini Dome. South Sioux, always a tough place to play. Last year's, you hadn't won there in a long time before last year. Last year, you picked up the last second. It was a White Mounts again coming through last year. But this year, a little bit different story. It was a game of runs, it seemed like. You go on an 8-0 run. South Sioux would go on an 8-0 run. They were at full strength after getting all their kids back. So did that game, it seemed like that runs was the story of the game.
Oh, we started off on a 0 run. We set basketball back to the peach basket days there early in the first quarter. I think that, the object of the game is to score, and we were having a little trouble with that early. We kept talking on the bench about it that, this can't continue. I mean, it cannot continue, and obviously it didn't, and we got things going, and the third quarter was great, but, it was just such a slow start. I mean, if you ever figure out how or why that happens, write a book and retire, because it happens to every team, and it happened to us last night.
You talk about your interior game, specifically the rebounding. Austin Ard and Chase Kern seemed like they always got in there and got the rebounds, and there weren't many second chance points, not only for East but for South Sioux as well. And I think that's a tribute to the big guys in there just getting their hands on the ball as it's coming off the rim and not allowing people to follow their shots and put it up a second time.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, we stress, defense heavily, and we stress rebounding. I think that's how you win games. And both those kids you just mentioned, Kern and Arndt, they're football kids. They're tough kids. I think rebounding is a toughness. It's a mental, thought process that, you're going to get bumped around or knocked into or maybe poked in the eye or whatever. But it's a physical toughness to be able to rebound. And the two kids you just mentioned, along with several others, like I said, they have it.
What's your coaching philosophy when it comes to offensive rebounding? Would you rather the kids put it right back up, or are you more of a bring it out and set the play back up again?
I think this. I'm a great math person. If you get the ball 2 foot from the basket, don't throw it out to 10. Turn around and shoot it. So that's my math class right there. Don't make it harder than what it is. If you rebound the ball, put it back up.
Wyatt finished with 22 points last night, and the game had been decided by about the last 2 minutes of the game. But free throw shooting, it came down to free throw shooting, and it seemed like the ball was in Wyatt's hand. He got fouled a lot, and he was sprinting to that free throw line. Kid likes shooting free throws.
And he's very good at it. Like I said, and he got into his groove and was hitting them. And free throws are so important, obviously late in the game. We need to ask the Iowa Hawkeyes about that. But, if you're going to win close games, free throws are so important. Because the last 2-3 minutes of every game, I don't know how many free throws there are, but there's, in a very close game, that adds up.
All right, we're going to pause for a minute, but when we come back, we're going to talk about a special visitor to the East High program this week. Welcome back to the Raider Hoops Report with Coach Raz Vanderloo. And Raz, you had a fun time this week having a very, very special visitor to the East High program. Greg Hall, a friend of the program, an alum of the program, came back, and I know you got a chance to talk to your team. We had him on at halftime on our KSCJ broadcast of your game at South Sioux. Can you talk a little bit about Greg and what he means to this program?
Oh, I tell you what, he's a very, very he's a great person. Number one, he went to East High School, played on the '72 team. That was an undefeated team. Greg's a very successful person in life. Attended Yale University. Now has a fantastic job in the Wall Street area of New York, and he is someone that a lot of times people they go to your school, they go to college, they move away, and once a year they might check the Heel and East score, just because it's a rivalry. But Greg is a person, like I said, lives in the New York City area and is a very successful businessman. But he truly is has interest in our program and how we do on a weekly basis, and I know he's checking things out because I get emails from him and things like that. And every year he shows up once or twice. Through his business, he's all over, and he flew in from Houston this weekend and was here and was at practice Saturday morning in the game last night against South Sioux. And he is somebody that we are very thankful for and the things that he does for us.
How do you have somebody who played for East 40 years ago, and then he's in his late 50s now, come back and relate to kids who are playing for East today? What does he say to them that sort of reaches them?
It's kind of interesting. For several years that he's been coming back doing this, we've always had one or two or maybe more players on the team that he either played with their father or even in one case a grandfather. There are several different connections, not only just the East High connection, but the individual connections through these kids. And I think when people get to be that age and they have an interest in sports or take a true interest in sports and activities, it keeps them young. Sports are obviously for the most part for younger people, and when you take a true interest in it and you know the people involved and what they're doing, I think it keeps you youthful.
And you have obviously the tradition there with Greg coming back. You also have a lot of former players that come back and poke their head in from time to time, and you welcome that, I know, because tradition's a big part of what you're trying to do here at East.
Absolutely. I think it's huge. I think when we've done a ton of good things in the last lot of years, whatever the number is, and you'd be shocked at the amount of people, the amount of former players that have stopped by. Ones that, I mean, as far as Greg, 40 years ago, they played 40 years ago. That stopped by. I mean, tons and tons of guys that played in the 70s and 80s and 90s and now in the 2000s that, especially over Christmas break, it seems like maybe, some older ones have come back for family Christmases and things like that, and the younger kids come back. And I'm always amazed at the people that, I get a text from, or they call, or, you're practicing today? And yeah, and the guys that stop out, they just want to watch practice. They get back in the gym of the school they went to years ago, and they relive some memories, hopefully good. And they all seem to walk out to the trophy cases, and they always brag a little bit, maybe how good they were, and sometimes they cheat a little bit and say they're maybe a little better than what they were, but they always enjoy that, and I think it's neat. I think it's neat for our kids to see how important it is, East High basketball is to people outside of our program, and that people care.
Have you had the experience yet? I know I don't want you to name names, but you'll see kids that you probably don't think that you've reached as a coach, or maybe their experience with East doesn't mean as much to them, and then they come back years later and you realize you really had an impact on this kid.
There's two in particular, no names mentioned, but two that they were a handful. They were a handful when they played here. Tremendous players. I mean, great players. But it was a handful, and when they come back years later, 10, 15 years later, and say, while I was here, maybe we didn't agree on everything that was happening, but now I understand why you guys were maybe on my case about being on time and being a good person and getting good grades, and sometimes it takes that long for kids. You hope you're doing the right thing for them. I mean, for their future. Every kid's not going to go play professionally, so they need to survive in the real world, and hopefully you're teaching them lessons more about life than basketball.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the assignments for all of the East High basketball assistants. Welcome back to the Raider Hoops Report with Coach Raz Vanderloo. And Coach, you got a lot of moving parts in your bench that help you practice, help you with the games. I know we talked last week about who your assistants are and where they kind of come from, but can you kind of tell the breakdown of assignments? Because everybody can't just be yelling and screaming at practice for everybody to dribble and shoot. There's got to be different assignments, some people on defense, offense. How's that work?
Absolutely. Most of the yelling and screaming comes from me. And what I'm even saying half the time, who knows? But we're very fortunate to have great assistant coaches, and I like I said, couldn't be happier with them. They work hard, they know what they're doing, they get along with the kids. Varsity wise, we do things maybe a little differently than a lot of schools, maybe more similar to some of the colleges. We have like an offensive coordinator similar to a football team would have, and that would be John Vanderloo, and he does an unbelievable job with that, and he's very conscientious of how the kids do it and making sure they're in the right places and the plays that were run. Jeff Jepson runs our defense. He'd be like our defensive coordinator, and I think it's important when you're coaching with a group of guys and you can break it up that much. That means that one person can spend all their time just on one thing, and I think that really helps. There's only so much time in a day, and some of it you're teaching school, and some of it you're with your family and such. So when you can break it down into you're just in charge of one thing, and be good at it, and these guys have been great at it. So Jeff Jepson does the defense. Rob Wooten coaches our post. Rob's a former post guy, knows what he's doing in there, and he works with the post in practice, and during the games he's obviously just watching the post. My son Tyler, he works with the guards mostly and does a lot with Coach Jepson with the defense. And when you can have like a defensive coordinator and a guy helping you, and an offensive coordinator with one guy helping you, I mean, I think it's we're not reinventing the wheel or anything, but I think it's worked really well for us, very well for us. Then with our sophomores, Dan DeYoung is the head coach, and he has Roman Gentry helping him, and Clarence Pippett helping him. So he has two helpers there. So I think when it's rather than a one-man show or one guy doing everything, when you can break it down and get help, when it's quality help, it's really good.
Is it a learning process for a head coach? Because when you have these guys that spend all the time on one particular item, are there sometimes they'll point out things that you haven't seen before, or is this? I know you're the CEO of the whole thing, but are there times when you're thankful that they're there because they find things that you might not necessarily see because you're watching something else?
Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't be where we're at without them. I know that. 100% know that. And the work that they do is awesome. They don't get enough credit for it. I know that. I get too much credit for what happens, and they should be getting a lot of the credit. But like I said, it's been working very well. We're not going to change it. And even though you might be just coaching defense, you may have an idea on offense or vice versa. And we take all ideas. We're not a one-man show, and we kind of do it by committee.
All right, you got to with Tyler coming back. He's been with 2 Division I programs, University of Iowa and University of South Dakota here. Does he come in with different ideas of what they're doing at the college level and try to do that at the high school level, or is this a matter of you're a first-year assistant, you're rather seen rather than heard?
On the game last night, that happened actually. That was by the ref though. He's got a lot of ideas, and a lot of times younger coaches they have a lot of ideas, and ideas are good. I mean, no idea is bad, and we take all ideas. Some we take a lot of it, and some we kind of not take a lot of. But different aged people, I think, really helps the staff because in age-wise, he's a lot younger than the rest of us, and maybe sees things a little differently, maybe closer to a player's viewpoint than an old coach's viewpoint. So, like I said, the age factor is good. The fact that he's been at those schools, I sometimes I think that he thinks sometimes that our players should be playing like Big Ten players, and sometimes they don't. So that's a kind of an adjustment that needs to be made. That some high school players aren't. They're not Big Ten guys. They're high school guys, and that's what they are. But it's been an adjustment for him, but it's been very good. He seems to be getting along great, and I think the players get along with him. And like I said, just having a younger voice in there, I think helps the total team.
All right, and what's the phone number people can call for their ideas? Kidding. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll look ahead to next week. Welcome back to the Raiders Hoops Report with Coach Raz Vanderloo. And looking ahead this week, you had 2 games last week, you have 3 this week, and they're a little more spread out for you. You got to like that.
No, I do like that. The competition level might be, I don't know if I like that, though.
Well, you start out Tuesday night. You're over at the Pit. Always a tough place to play. And taking on a Heelan team that suffered a defeat Saturday night up at North. So what do you think that game's going to bring you?
Well, I think it'll be a battle. It's a natural rival for forever and ever. And, we get fired up for it. I know the Heelan people do, and a lot of the fans do. And going over there to play is it's a unique deal, and I actually kind of like it. It's old school, but it'll be very good competition. Those Heelan kids play hard. They're used to winning. They're just coming off a football state championship, and a lot of their basketball players are football kids. So they're going to be physical, and we're going to have to match that and see what happens.
Friday night, you got the Warriors coming in. What do you think there?
Sergeant Bluff is a talented team. I mean, they're a good team. Player for player, they stack up. Right toward the top of the conference. They took North to overtime a week ago. They're going to win a lot of games this year. We got them at home, I think, which helps a little bit. So we're gonna have to step up our defense, and they got 3 or 4 kids that can shoot the ball well and a good point guard, and so I mean it's another one. If we're not ready to roll, we could be in trouble.
And then Saturday night, you hit the open road, head south to Council Bluffs, and you're going to be playing a Papillion team, but you're going to be on the same floor that Cher performed on a while back.
Well, it's hopefully we look as good as Cher, I guess, so to speak. It's a new opponent. It's kind of a tournament setting. It's very similar to our CNOS Classic that we have here in Sioux City, that they've started down there in Council Bluffs now, and we're playing a very good team in Papillion. An Omaha team that has had a lot of success lately, and they know how to play basketball. So it's another, I think playing good team only helps you down the road, and we're not shying away from that. I mean, we've been everywhere to play, and we'll continue to do that. So it's it's a formidable opponent. It's a new opponent, which I think is always exciting when you play somebody new. So we'll once again we're gonna be ready to go.
3 wins so far this season to 1 loss. You're hoping for another 3 before the holiday break. Coach Raz Vanderloo, best of luck next week, and we'll see you here in a week.
Thank you much.
All right, and that was the Raider Hoops Report for this week with Coach Raz Vanderloo. We'll be back in a week.